Well, hey, game changers out there. This is your girl, Coach Della Major, aka the game changer herself, and I am here to change the game. And I am so excited to be coming to you again for a live episode of another episode of our Resilient Living series. And today's episode is called From Excuses to Execution. 7 steps to breaking free and walking in purpose. Um, there is truly a difference between an excuse and a reason. You know, excuses takes away from our responsibility. It helps keeps us stagnant. It keeps us in our comfort zone. It stops us from moving forward. A reason is generally an explanation for something or whatever you explaining a situation that might be happening. But when we're talking about excuses is like those limiting beliefs. Excuses is like that imposter syndrome that comes in. It's anything that stops us from moving forward. And so today we want to really dig deep and talk about make sure that we have a good understanding of when we make excuses on situations that happen in our life or whatever that might be going on in our life. And then I want to also provide you what God has given me with some steps on how we could break free from these excuses that we tell ourselves. I like to say the lies that we tell ourselves and really walk in our divine purpose. Okay, so let's dig deep first into meaning and definition because I think that once we have a solid foundation of the word excuse and really how it applies in a natural sense, we're going to take a look at it from the biblical perspective and how, even though the word excuse was not definitely written in there, but yet still God had addressed the issue when we come up with excuses. Okay, so let's take a look at what the Webster Dictionary give us as definition defined term for the word excuse. It says it's to pardon or to forgive. It's an explanation for something that went wrong. That's what the Webster Dictionary says. The Cambridge Dictionary says it's to give, listen to this, a false reason why we cannot do something. Remember, on the last teaching, we talked about fear and how fear hinders us as well. And we gave the acronym for fear, which is false evidence appearing real. But in this lesson, we're talking about excuses. And we see here in the meaning, it says it's to give a false reason why we cannot do something. Not explaining what might be true, but explaining what is false based off of fear, lack, limited beliefs, or whatever that scenario may be. You see, when we give an excuse, we're trying to basically either give someone or something some slack, or we're coming up with an excuse or something that's going to slow down our momentum of moving forward or build a momentum of nothingness. You see, excuses is basically seldomly built off of anything that's going to be positive. Excuses is our means, a way of justifying why we don't follow through on something, why we don't show up for something, why we just don't do something. Come on, Michelle Obama already said, we can't make no excuse. There's no excuse when you don't vote. There's no excuse when you don't do something. When you make up an excuse, then you're saying what you're failing to do. You're allowing your fear, you're allowing that thing that hinders you from moving you forward. And then you try to come up with a justification why you didn't take the risk. I've been talking about this whole week because one of the things you hear so often on the news is all the chatter of what's happening in Washington. You know, how they talking about taking away Medicare, all Medicaid, Social Security, everything along these lines. But if the truth be told, if we really was looking for positive change, then we would have came up with the excuse why we didn't vote. Because now we are looking at the consequences of us not doing something and the decision that we made, right? So when we think about excuses, the question that should come is, what is stopping you from moving forward? Let's take a look. Oh no, this is something very, very key. I want to bring this up. There was a quote that was made from Benjamin Franklin, and that quote says, let me find it here because I think that this is really, really important. He that is good for making excuses is seldom good for anything else. Come on. Come on. That's powerful, y'all. He that is good for making excuses is seldom good for anything else. Simply put, is that the individuals who are so adept to crafting up excuses for whatever their shortcomings, whatever their mistakes might be, whatever they look at as failure, are unlikely to be successful or competent in any other areas of their life. Because it's going to always be something. They're going to always have an excuse why they was not able to complete it. And if you put this in real terms, how many of us have made those excuses that hinders us from moving forward? That really minimize the power that God has given us and the ability that God has given us to pursue and dominate in our area of influence. That's really, really powerful. You see, excuses are nothing but just lies. Lies that dress up the truth. And the truth is, excuses keeps us from experiencing the abundance of God in our life. The more we make up an excuse, instead of us being bold and confident and take a risk, then we are missing out on our blessings. So let's look at some examples in the Bible that we can really connect to as it relates to how the Bible looked at from a biblical perspective of the word excuse. Let's talk about Jeremiah, prophet Jeremiah, his calling. In Jeremiah 1:6-8, you see here that God was calling Jeremiah at a young age to go out and to be a major prophet for him in the land, especially during the time when the children of Israel was very rebellious, very rebellious, and at the same time they constantly was disobedient. Because of their rebellious attitudes and ways, God was about to bring on judgment. And Jeremiah had to be the prophet to prophesy judgment over the children of Israel, and was always the one constantly being threatened, being in a position of, being persecuted. He's known as the weeping prophet. But when he first got the call, this is what he said to God. Alas, sovereign Lord, this is Jeremiah saying, I said, I do not know how to speak. Why? Because I'm too young. But look at God's response. But the Lord said to him, do not say, I'm too young. You must go to everyone I send you to, and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. So Jeremiah's excuse was the fact that he was young. And he used that excuse, and that excuse came not based off of his ability, but based off one word: fear. Because he kept seeing, he understood the assignment, but because of fear, he was using the excuse of his youth to try to hold them back and carry out the assignment that God told him to do. In the end, we already know he eventually fulfilled the assignment, but God had to get him straight. Don't say that you are too young. That's what God had to tell him. Can you imagine every time we go to the Lord and we come up with an excuse on why we couldn't be able to fulfill our God-given purpose? Why we didn't start that business when he told us to start that business? Why we didn't sow a seed when he told us to sow a seed? What if God would have made the excuse of not coming down to save us and to sacrifice himself on behalf of us? Can you imagine what that excuse would look like or sound like? Let's go. Second example, Moses calling in Exodus chapter 4, verses 10 through 12. This is the moment when God was calling Moses to be a mouthpiece, to go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh to release his people so they might come to Mount Sinai and worship him. So looking at this as a dynamic calling, the first thing Moses said to God, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since have I spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. So instead of saying yes to the assignment, Moses, his excuse was, I got a stumbling block, I stutter, I'm not eloquent in my speech nor in my tongue. I'm not the one to speak. I'm not like all these other orators that's out here. I make so many mistakes that I can't get my words out. I don't sound like that person. I don't sound like a T.D. Jakes. I don't sound like a Sarah Jakes Roberts. I don't sound like that. I don't come across like that. I'm from a little kid from the west side of Chicago. God, you surely ain't choosing me to be a mouthpiece for you. But this is what God said. But the Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight and makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. You was beautifully and wonderfully made. Everything about you was uniquely created by God. So surely, if the same God that created you, the same God that gave you the anointing, the same God that gave you purpose, surely he will give you what you need to fulfill the assignment. All he's looking for was a willing vessel. He wasn't looking for excuses on why you couldn't do something. He was looking for your yes. So when you just look at those two examples, how many of us have tried to come up with those excuses of what I can do, what I can't do, how I shouldn't do, whatever it is that God called us to do? Every excuse we make is like putting together another stone on the wall that separates us, that blocks us, that hinders us from fulfilling our God-given destiny and purpose. The more we make excuses, the higher that ball is. The higher it is. And the more higher it goes, it's going to make it harder to tear down our wall. So, what are some of the reasons for we come up with excuses? Fear of failure, fear of rejection, limited beliefs, false identity, perfectionism, comparison ourselves to others, past trauma, emotional wounds. These are just a few. Somewhere along the line, these types of things that have occurred in our life position us to come up with an excuse. So what are some of the consequences of our excuses? Of what excuses in our life? It prevents us from reaching our full potential. It prevents us from recognizing opportunities that could be right in our face. It hinders and it devalues our skill sets, our talents. It leads to mental blocks in our creativity. And it leads, again, to us building up those imaginary walls that hinders us from moving forward. So, when we think about excuses and how excuses stops us from maximizing our potential, stop us from fulfilling our God-given purpose here on earth, the question is, do we want to always stay in a lack mindset, in a fixed mindset, in a limited mindset, or are we looking for forward momentum where we can maximize ourselves through our God-given potential? So, as I was thinking about this lesson, and I was asking Holy Spirit, what are some steps to overcoming excuses? He gave me 7. As I know there's many, but these 7 is the one that resonated with me, and I want to share with you. So, step number 1. We're talking about overcoming excuses. Let's take responsibility. The very first step to stop making excuses is that we got to realize that we are the ones that's in control of our destiny. We got to take responsibility. If we know what we need to do to succeed to the next level, then it's going to be up to us to make the decision or implement whatever the strategies, whatever we got to do to get to that next level. So we got to take responsibility of our actions, our deeds, our talents, our skills, whatever it is. You got to own up to it, because why? You are the author of your story. You are the architect of how your life is going to be built and lived. That's number 1. Take responsibility. Number 2, you got to shift your perspective. You got to come from that fixed mindset to a growth mindset. You got to always be looking for opportunities. Even now, come on, y'all. I'm so excited about this. Think about this. If there's ever a time that I want to tap into the stock market, now will be the time. Why? Because many look at this situation as so negative as how everything is going down. But it's also, I want you to shift your perspective, because now there's an opportunity. If you never had the ability to afford to get into the stock and buy mutual funds, stock funds, now's the time. When you know better, you do better. When you get the knowledge and the skill set, then you begin to put the resources together so that you can be able to be a buy-in. Because those who are looking long-term know that what's happening now is a short term. It's temporary. It's going to change. The question is, how are you going to maximize in this opportunity that you've been given? So I'm not going to wallow in what I don't have. I'm going to look at opportunity, what I can have. And as the door is being opened, as God's chosen vessels, we got to identify the time. Now's the time for us to possess the land. Not worry about what is lacking and what they're doing in Washington, but what is an opportunity for us to get a buy-in and maximize our full potential with that. Let's talk about it. We got to shift our perspective. Why? Because Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things, all things for God works together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. And all things are working together for our good. Not some, all. Y'all got to tap into that. Number 3, you got to avoid dwelling in the past. COVID is over. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but 2020 is 2020. This is 2025. Paul tells us we got to forget those things from behind. And we got to move forward by pressing towards the mark. So if we're pressing, then I don't have time to be dwelling and staying in the past. I got to stop, reflect, make some shifts, come out of my comfort zone, and move forward. Avoid dwelling in the past, because excuses keeps us stuck in this cycle. It's just like a broken album that replay on that one line over and over again until you go and you move the needle a little bit forward. Then the rest of the album is able to play. How many of you guys is ready to move the needle a little bit forward? Let's go. Number 4, uncover your limited belief. People who make excuses more than likely have certain limiting belief that they're holding on to. But in order for you to know what to let go, how to move forward, how to overcome, how to make the shift, you need to identify and uncover, peel the onion back. What is that limiting belief that keeps you staying stagnant, that keeps you in your comfort zone, that stops you from moving forward? What is that limiting belief from having you to have that CEO mindset in your business and making some money moves that's going to benefit you in the long run? Number 5, to everything there's a lesson. You got to find the lesson. What is the lesson that you are learning? Don't come up with the excuse. Find what is the lesson. Remember, we just said all things work together for our good. So what is the lesson in whatever the situation that you're going through? See, people who make excuses, they don't bother looking at the mistakes and how they can change their mistakes. What it is, they look at their mistake and say, that's it. I'm not doing it no more. Or they begin to start tearing themselves up. There's a lesson to everything. So what is the lesson that you need to learn if you made a mistake or in order for you to move forward? Number 6, what's your vision? Because once you define your vision, then you're establishing a blueprint for your life. And once you have that blueprint for your life, now you got that roadmap. Now it's no excuse. Because once you have it already written down, now you know what purpose you're going. You know your goal. You know where you're going. You're like the rudder on your ship. But it tells you to make the vision, write the vision, make it plain. So those who read it, they'll be able to run with it. But if you have no vision, you perish. That's word. No vision, you perish. So you got to find your vision. And number 7, you need support. Get some support. Sometimes you could be in a scenario, in a situation where you so inundated into whatever it is, that it's easy for you to make an excuse. But with a support system, they help you to decrease those excuses. They hold you accountable. And you need to have that support system that's going to hold you accountable. That support system is going to hold you accountable for your action. It's going to eliminate your excuses. Because then they're going to tell you what you don't want. They're going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So when you're getting support, you want to get support from sound counsel. Trust a friend. Either if you marry your significant other, you trust in them. Or like in my case, I call them my yayas, my accountability sisters. These are the individuals that help me to be able to move forward. So let me repeat my 7. We talk about the 7 steps of overcoming excuses. Number 1, take responsibility. Number 2, shift your perspective. Number 3, avoid dwelling in the past. Number 4, uncover your limited beliefs. Number 5, find the lesson in whatever you're going through. Number 6, define your vision. And then number 7, get support. When you tap into all of these, like I said, this is not exhaustive, but these are the things that God gave me as revelation of overcoming excuses and really keeping us on this roadmap of moving forward momentum. And so if you tap into, if you could connect with any of what I'm just sharing, because it's now time for us to stop playing small. Time for us to stop playing small. Time for us to get some skin into the game. It's time for us to set aside, kill fear, and now let's come out and take the risk and move forward. So if you're designed and if you really ready and you're destined and you're determined to rise up, to lead, to live your life fully, if you're determined to take a one bold step to moving forward, setting aside and casting down your excuses, then I encourage you to connect, go to my description and click on that discovery call and let us connect so that we can come up with that breakthrough plan together that's going to help you to eliminate, eradicate excuses and move you forward in a forward momentum and possessing all that God has for you. Because I'm telling you, this is the season not to come up with an excuse, not to sit down, but this is the season for us to come out, take the risk, and move forward. Possess the land. Because we've been given that ability to do so. I want to put this image in your mindset. When the 10 plagues was happening in the land of Egypt with the Egyptian, the children of Israel was flourishing, y'all. So what am I saying? In the midst of chaos, God's people was possessing the land. God's peoples were flourishing. And when they left Egypt, where they was once slaves, they now was millionaires, kings and queens, because they had wealth beyond measure. Now it's the time to cast down excuses. And it's the time for us to possess the land and move forward. So once again, if you're ready to move forward in your breakthrough, definitely I encourage you to click on the link inside of the show description so that you could be able to connect with me and establish the discovery call so that we can move forward in creating that breakthrough plan for you and for your future and your divine destiny. So if you have not already received a copy of my current book, which is From Trigger to Transform, as a journey to self-discovery and purpose, I encourage you to go out to Amazon or you can go to my website, which is called www.youcanlive, live is spelled LYVE.com, and you can pick up your copy today. We are almost done with the editing on the new book, and the new book is definitely called Discover, Decide, and Do. Christian Women's Guide to Hope and Resilience, and be watchful and mindful and looking out for that, because I'm telling you, that also gives you steps on how you can move forward, eliminating excuses, and then creating your own breakthrough plan and living a resilient life. So if you have not already done so, definitely make sure that you connect with me on all of my social media channels, here on Facebook at Coach Della Major, here on Instagram at Coach Della Major, and then on YouTube, you can find me at Reclaim and Live with Coach Della Major. Definitely, when you connect on YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when we go live in new episodes like this that is going forth, and you don't want to miss out. I am a podcast. My podcast is going forth and it's live. We, as a matter of fact, season 3 is about to be well on the way. And so you want to definitely make sure that you connect with that. My podcast is called From Trigger to Transform with Coach Della Major. And yes, you can find me on all of the mediums that you can hear on podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Google, Spotify. Definitely reach out and connect with me there. And with that being said, I want to thank you, Game Changers, for connecting with me on another episode in our mini teaching in our Resilient Living series. And God bless and have a phenomenal day.